Good morning. It's Thursday, May 22nd. I'm Philip Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So let's check in on some of the top headlines, the market moving events, and the overnight price action. And overnight price action in the metals markets, the entire complex is down pretty substantially here right now, with copper, silver, gold all making new lows on the overnight session. So we saw some trouble brewing here in the bond market, and yesterday we saw that anxiety spread over into the stock market with a ripple effect occurring overnight. What happened was you had a weak auction on the 20-year bonds, which elevated the worries about the rising deficits in Washington and drove sharp declines in stocks and bonds. It sent the Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 800 points and 30-year Treasury bonds to the highest level since 2023. So we saw those bonds reach about 5.08%. We also saw 10-year bonds hit 4.59. What happened on the S&P 500? Fallen about 1.6. The NASDAQ down 1.4. And then we saw the declines. They were broad-based in nature, and that's how you could tell that the contagion was spreading, with 10 out of the 11 sectors all notching declines. Now today we will have some economic data coming out. We'll have unemployment claims. We'll also have the flash manufacturing PMI, which is expected to contract into contractionary territory with expectations of 49.9. The flash services at 50.1. We'll have existing home sales, natural gas, and one Fed speaker speaking. So looking at the precious metals, we do have platinum futures here easing back here at 1067. We hit the highest level here, quite a long time here, rallied to a one-year high as traders kind of weigh in on these deficits and the impacts and the uncertain demand outlook. So you go to the World Platinum Investment Council, they estimated a shortage of almost 1 million ounces this year, with the prospect of struggling miners cutting back on operations, which could continue to support prices. So expect the dips here on the platinum market to be somewhat shallow in nature. However, that market tends to, from my experience, it tends to run multiple days in a row in direction. So if we do get a correction, we may see this lead to a multi-day correction as well. Now, platinum jewelry demand in China climbed 26% for the first quarter from a year earlier, while gold jewelry demand had declined 32%. So basically what happened was the consumer rotated to different products out there, and the number of platinum dealers in China had really came up quite a bit here and came out of nowhere. So you look at the exchange traded funds, they cut about 88,000 troy ounces of gold from their holdings in yesterday's session, fifth straight day of decline. So that the ETF and the retail investor is basically rotating. They're coming out of the gold market and they're looking for other places, whether it is some of the equity markets with the Magnificent Seven, 5 of those are back in bullish territory, or if they're going into Bitcoin, with Bitcoin making a new all-time high here in the overnight session and up $2,200. We'll see if that equity sell-off, the precious metal sell-off, can pull back the Bitcoin market just a bit here. But we also do have Solana futures, we have Ripple futures, and we have Ethereum futures. So the Ripple futures just launched here. So some of the FCMs are still analyzing the product here before they open it up. You look at the year-to-date percentage change, gold up 6%, so it's a small decrease. And then silver basically unchanged, up 2.7%. You got crude oil futures under pressure, down about $1.28. So OPEC members are discussing the potential for a third consecutive production output increase here for July. The expectations are for an output hike of 411,000 barrels per day. That final decision is going to take place on June 1st. So if you trade crude oil, you're going to want to put that in your calendar, just make it a pop-up on your iPhone. So again, Bitcoin passing that 111,000. You got increased institutional demand and support from the current administration, wave of optimism and things like that. So we've seen some advancements in some key stablecoin bill. It's at the U.S. Senate. So copper futures down at 458, coming back down into pocket support after hitting 474 overnight. Many people took positions off there, look to reestablish near some support levels. Then you go into the gold market here, back below $3,300, trading at 32.84. Silver, massive range overnight. So silver taking us, a lot of people I discussed with, taking us right to the altar. So it gets us right to this point here where you get to 33.50 and just a bit above that, so up to like $34. And if you go do yourself a favor, just pull up a daily chart on the silver market. You can see you had the big sell-off there. You hit the lows, about $29. You shoot back up to about 34. And then what happens is we trade in this range here, this 34 to about 31.50. And what that does is it creates a lot of energy back and forth in there. You also have a lot of people that are swing traders that are selling those highs, trying to buy the dips, and they're reversing with shorts and things like that. Just playing that range back and forth. What it does is it bottles up a lot of energy. And then finally, when you break out from it, you can see what happened in the gold market where we had those massive moves up to all-time highs. And if you also look at the silver market, there is this channel that it's been in here since about 2023, where if it could break out over some of these levels like 33.50 on a closing basis, of course, and then you break above 35, it should target about that $38 to $39 range here. But it's going to need to take some action from the copper market. It needs a spillover effect in the platinum market. It needs to see gold futures, remain elevated. I've not been as bullish on the gold market because of the fact that you have U.S. equities starting to push higher again, even though we've had a 2-day correction on there. The S&P 500 is up about 6 points. The NASDAQ's up about 55. But you need to see in elevated, you're also going to have elevated bond yields and interest rates, and which is going to create a lot of competition for the gold market, which has already ran up 20-something%. So you see the gold-silver ratio should start to come down, analyzing those two. However, given today's sell-off here in the silver market, at least early hour action, you're seeing that back at 100 to 1. So we just want to keep an eye on a lot of things, a lot of the critical levels of support and things like that in these markets. So I'll be sending out an update on Chart Packet pretty early in the morning because we'll have yesterday's price action, then we'll have today's corrective action. So we'll have some good identifiable levels of support and resistance. So many people signed up yesterday, so we refrained from selling it out until we get all those people bundled together so we can get that out to them. Otherwise, some of the grain markets having a bit of a correction, nothing really there. You do have the dollar index up 29 points, so all the foreign currencies pulling back just a bit. Again, all the softs are under pressure, the equities are mixed here, and as far as the energy markets, they are all correcting here overnight. So you guys got any questions, shoot an email, info@bluelinefutures.com. You want to open up an account, real easy to do. You could just request the link and we'll send it out to you. And then remember, futures and option trading, it does involve risk of loss, and it may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.